In the list of ranking for IEMs in some reviewers, I believe you would have seen some very well-known names right there in the top, like the 64 Audio or maybe Sony or Vision Ears. I mean, there's not a lot of room for Chi-Fi to be right in that Summit-Fi in the top of the list for the ranking list, but this IEM is usually there as a representative for a Chi-Fi. So hello and welcome to After Sound Review, and this is my review for QDC Anole VX. I don't know actually how to spell Anole. Okay, just like usual, I will review them based on the build, fit, frequency, response, sound, and comparison. By the way, thank you for Mr. Danny for lending me his personal unit. And this QDC Anole VX is a premium Chi-Fi which costs around 2,000 bucks, and it's using 10 balancer mature driver for each ears. The build quality, I can't help but saying that it's really mediocre. It's really typical Chi-Fi IEMs. It is all made of acrylic, it's all made of resin, and the nozzle is made of aluminum. I have to make some comment here that if you have touched the Sony IR M9, the Sony IR Z1R, or the 64 Audio U12T, those IEMs that I've mentioned are all have much better build quality, much more it's more weightier in my hand. It's really light. It's just like the usual Chi-Fi IEMs. It's using QDC Type-C connectors, 2-pin, and the cable is 8 strands. This is the jack. Well, I can't help but feel that it's really a mediocre build, but I have to give praise to the faceplate somehow looking good. When it comes to fit, for me, I don't know why, but it fits almost perfectly in my ears. It's just like a custom IEM sitting there very nicely, tight, and very stable. So I could use them for a lot of time, but this IEM is one IEM that is kinda really have that vacuum effect because how sealed they are. So personally, I need to only use them for 2 hours, and then I need to take them out for a while and then use them again. This frequency response as mild V-shaped-ish balance. You could see there's still emphasis on the bass and also upper mid to treble area, but there's a little bit dip on the 5 kHz here, so it's make the whole sound smooth. And yes, there's switch for this QDC Anole VX. You can check it on my After Sounds quick link. And yeah, it's not gimmick. The first switch give more bass, the second switch give more mid-range, and the third switch give more treble. So yeah, it depends on your preference, but for me the all-off switch is the best one. And comparing them with this Sony IR Z1R, the Z1R is noticeably more V-shaped. You can see that. And yes, it definitely sounds more V-shaped with more recessed mid-range. And then with the 64 Audio U12T, the U12T is somehow more thicker, especially in the mid-range area, and it's a little bit more reset somehow in the treble, but it has more airiness around this part. So before I talk about the sound of this Anole VX, for me, they are relatively easy to drive. Even though you're using your phone, it's kinda still good enough to feel how good they are. And of course, using a more proper DAP will give you much better experience. And through my DX160, for me, it's enough to show me how detailed they are when I listen to them for the first time. Actually, that's the first thing I noticed. Not the tonal, not the soundstage or whatsoever, but the information that I get from this IEM, the information of the music that I get from this IEM is just exceptional. Maybe it is simply the best that I've ever tried. Just for notes, I have reviewed and measured a lot of IEMs. Right now I have tried and reviewed over 100 IEMs, and with a lot of price ranges, and for me this is the most resolving and this is the most detailed IEM that I've ever heard. And yeah, that alone is a really good reason to put them to the top of my list. because how good they are. And the good thing doesn't just end there. The tonality of this IM is also really great, which I consider them to be a mild U-shaped-ish kind of sound. But this kind of sound, because it's not overly V-shaped, so that's why I called it mild U-shaped-ish. But with that kind of emphasized bass and also good treble extension, for me this kind of tonality will suit a lot of genres. So yeah, I've tried a lot of genres with it. I'd like to talk about the tonality more in depth first. The bass is really fast and deep and really well controlled, just like what you expect from a really high quality Balancer mature driver. The bass is deep, it's fast, but it's lacking that well, how should I say it, dynamic texture to it. You don't feel that thump, you don't feel that bounciness of a dynamic driver. And here it's just a really good high quality BA-ish kind of bass. But yeah, it's really good, because if you want more, you just turn on the switch number 1 and then you'll get extra thump with it. But I should say that you lose a little bit of resolution when you turn off that bass switch a bit. And I'm talking about the mid-range. For me, it is still quite balanced type of vocal. So whether you're listening to male or female vocal added, I still feel that they are really kind of great, with a lot of genre, with a lot of kind of music, even rock, pop. It's really quite a really good balance between male and female vocals, so you won't really get that sense of distance also from male vocal or female vocal. It just gives a really well balanced vocal. But if I should critique it a bit, it still kind of sounds hollow for some really good male vocalists such as Il Divo, Josh Groban, or Michael Bublé. But other than that, for me, it's a really well-rounded kind of vocal. And the treble, it's dreaded with some, you know, the BA-ish timbre to it. You still feel that the kind of percussion or some cymbals doesn't really get that crystal clear texture that you will maybe crave for the cymbal. It just somehow feels quite unnatural, but it's still, again, it's still really well detailed, and the transient speed is still good. So if you're hearing to a lot of high notes, it's still really clear and not piercing at the same times. And that's actually what I like about this IM tonality. It's well-rounded, even though it has a lot of details going on, but the tonality is still well balanced. And also, it never pierces my ears. I don't feel there's any shoutiness to it, and I don't feel there's any sibilant to it. So I feel that this IM, the tonality is really well balanced, and accompanying with that great technicality, especially in detail, for me it's just a really well-rounded and easy to like IM. But if I have to say the weakness of this IM is it tastes very BA-ish. You know, Balancer Mature driver usually has a lot of inherent weakness and also strong points because of their driver configuration. Yes, like for example, when you're comparing Balancer Mature to Dynamic driver, the Balancer Mature tends to have faster bass and also more controlled bass bleed, but at the same time you also losing that kind of dynamic texture to it, which can be sound a little bit unnatural and too fast at certain times and not too majestic when you play movies, and you get that in here. And also that timbre that you will notice, especially when you are a pianist, when you are someone who usually listens to instruments. For me, this IM's timbre still feels kind of plasticky and light compared to the Dynamic driver, which I found more thick in weight notes and also have more natural timbre to it. You still feel that there's some plasticky timbre going on. But at, you know, kilobucks IMs, I have found some really maybe magical BA driver IMs, such as the 64 Audio U12T and also this IR M9, which I found the treble to be really excellent even though they are not piercing, but the extension of the treble itself, it's like much farther compared to the usual BA driver. And the U12T and this IRM9 has also excellent bass response that somehow I can feel that kind of dynamic bounciness from their BA driver. So I should say that this IRM9 and also the 64 Audio U12T to be a quite magical BA driver IM, which I found to be really excellent, really like pushing the limits of Balancer Metro driver after hearing them. And then I come back to this QDC Anole AVX. I can't help but feels that the type of driver, the characteristic of the BA driver is just back to its a normal BA driver. I hope you understand what I mean. But nevertheless, for me, it's still a really well balanced IM with a really great technicality. Now, when we're talking about technicality, the main point of this IM is absolutely the detail level, which is really great. But the soundstage and also the imaging I found to be not as good as some competitors. For example, the soundstage for me, the Z1R right here, and also the U12T, also the IRM9. When I'm hearing to Hans Zimmer orchestral soundtrack for a lot of movies like Kung Fu Panda or maybe the Interstellar or a lot of his music, doesn't feel as majestic, as grandeur as these IMs. So the soundstage depth isn't as three-dimensional as like those IMs that I've mentioned before. And also even though the resolution is great, the imaging is also great, but the level of imaging to feel where the sound is coming from, I still feel that somehow the IRM9 I feel to be a little bit better, because I can feel more sense of space between the instruments. But even though I'm saying that the imaging of this IRM9 is somehow a little bit better, especially when I hear again to orchestral music, but the detail level, the information I get from the whole orchestra, I feel that I hear more instruments clearly in this Anole AVX. I just can't help but when we're talking about detail level alone, this Anole AVX is definitely triumph over the Z1R or the IRM9. It's just like a almost different level when we're talking about the detail level alone. Okay, now talking about more about the comparison. For me, just like I said, for me the other IMs that I've ever mentioned before, like the IR-Z1R, U12T, and also the IRM9, all have more natural timbre compared to the QDC Anole AVX. So the timbre for me is the main weakness somehow for this Anole AVX, because I can't help but when I'm hearing a lot of instruments, just for notes, I play piano myself and I have joined with some orchestra or some vocal group and also choir. For me, the IR-Z1R, U12T, and IRM9 all have better timbre compared to this Anole AVX. When I'm hearing orchestral music and also movie soundtracks, for me and also EDMs and live music, for me those kind of energetic music, those kind of exciting musics, I could shake my hand, I could shake my head when I'm hearing to them using these IMs and with the U12T also, but I couldn't really shake my head with this thing. I can't help, even though it's sweet, it sounds sweet, it never goes harsh, but I can't help but when I'm hearing music like orchestral, it feels like I'm almost analyzing the song because of how detailed it is, and compared to the other ones, for me the dynamics of this feels kinda lacking, so I'm losing a little bit of that excitement after I'm hearing to the other great IMs that I've ever tried. But again, like I said, after I hearing a lot of them and then go back to this Anole AVX, I can't help but feels that this is the most detailed thing. So yeah, you might say that this is like a crazy doctor or something because of how detailed it is, but at the same time it's not the most natural thing that occurs to me when I'm hearing instruments. Okay, I think that's all that I have to say. So yeah, the pros are it's really resolving, great tonality, and then the fit and The feel is also great, but the cons are it's just not natural and not engaging, not really as dynamic as some of its competitors. But nevertheless, I will still pick this IM to be one of my best IMs that I've ever heard. I hope you enjoy this review, and if you have any question, please write down in the comments below, and see you next time. Bye bye.